Those were the consequences of the severe trauma, such as not being able to sleep for extended periods. They mentioned he only slept 3 to 4 hours a day, and his job became a reflection of him.
In essence, if you desire to change things, the belief was that energy should be accessible and free for everyone.
It was at that wave of like the new frontier of electricity. Who is going to be the forefront?
Welcome to the Ethics Go podcast. Today we have our friend David Andrade. He's a chemist, and we have Kevin. He's an awesome photographer. He's always curious about knowing about science, nature, psychology, and myself, Wendell. And we're going to talk about Nikola Tesla. How does that sound? We were just talking about this might take like 3 to 4 chapters because the man was not only impressive, but he was controversial, intelligent. His beginnings in Croatia, what we know as Croatia today, is quite staggering, his story, and also his life in New York with the elites. There's so much to cover. So today we're going to try to cover what we believe is very important. And whatever we can't cover, we will do it in another show. So let's start. Who wants? Star in the making. You want to start? David, please inform me. Who wants to start?
I firmly believe we need to discuss the psychology behind the test, which is your area of expertise. It significantly influenced him, contributing to his genius, with many stating his mother played a significant role. His mother was his inspiration. Hence, it's crucial to explore how this influence began at birth. There was a constant controversy involving negativity during a storm at his birth. When his mother shifted her perspective, it marked the beginning of a new way to confront challenges. From there, you know that your training as a person is going to be the best because your mother always sees it from a positive perspective. I mean, you're not, how to say it, the complete phrase like, you are not a child of the storm if you are not of the light. And
it sounds like a very intriguing perspective, for instance. His mother also had a very good memory, so it is also understood. And from there, she got a lot, perhaps not from her resilience and also that way of being able to capture information. Another thing I liked about him is that his dad was a person. This one wasn't religious either. He was in the priesthood, if I'm not mistaken. And also having had a regime, his dad. Imagine how he was educated in that home, not how he was educated in that home because he was influenced by a mother who was not only a person who had supposedly had a photoscopic memory, not that you learned things quickly, but perhaps the father gave him the understanding. That is, the mother gave him the concept of how to memorize, or perhaps he came out with that innate, but his father perhaps also gave him that. Not that training to understand, because when we talk about religious issues, it is not only about knowing, but about understanding how you are going to apply it. And I think that's the detail of Tesla, not Tesla. His training was formidable, so was his childhood, not in which he also had a moment where he had a trauma, not with the germs from the cholera that caused him, right? And that too, how did it influence your growth and phobias? No, because he, logically perhaps at that time, they did not understand much about psychology, how to treat these phobias. And he had to, despite life with that, implement and be creative with others. Because remember his work, there's a lot of teamwork involved too, right? And this part is going to speak in English so that Kevin starts to invoice. There is also, so like imagine Kevin like he was when he was sick, what went through his mind too. I just I can imagine like he developed this phobia and then suddenly, you know, a new version of himself comes out. What are your thoughts? Because David, I think kicked it in really great with that topic of like his early years. What are your thoughts? I know you love Tesla too.
Yeah. Tesla, he's one of my favorite like scientists, one of my favorite poets too, because he writes a lot of poetry in there as well. And his mom, I believe it's like his mom taught him a lot of poems, like recited that a lot of times to him, and that's what trained his memory to learn 8 languages. And it's pretty it's interesting because she was training his memory to with each poem, but each poem meant something, and it was probably like a universal language that she was talking to through Nikola Tesla, and then his father as well, being part of the church and being in the priesthood within the church. Um, I believe he taught him a lot of religious values and religious spiritual sides to see the world in different ways, like to apply like the spiritual to the science. And he like he broke through that and showed us a new dimension in science, not just the physical intent, like not just like what we could see, because now we have tools that can see beyond what was thought because of Nikola Tesla, like like pieces, like there's a lot of pieces that came from him. Um, and then also with his brother, he saw his brother die from a horse, and since then he kept seeing flashes. So it was like he had like a trauma of like also seeing his brother just like go through that death and seeing that, and since then it kind of like gave him like a whole bunch of like he kept seeing like flashes of things, and that's where he started getting his inventions from.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because then he learned how to control it instead of like shying away from the flashes. He was learning from them. It was like things that were like kind of like going to him. Like he was seeing he was a genius, but things weren't like people didn't see that as it like they called him crazy, but he was seeing those things. He was inventing them, and then he hopped into them and started to basically he started to like manipulate the way he started thinking with it, and he started to learn how to control it, where he started to do the inventions in his dream. So imagine when you're sleeping, so you sleep and you can do the inventions so much faster because like the dream state, what's time, right? How fast do you go in the dream state? And like how much can you make, or how much, and where do you really go, right? So like that's kind of like Nikola Tesla was very spiritual in that sense too. Uh,
Mhm.
and eh, his past, I think his past, he taught him how to. I really think like one of the like his past taught him how to go through like traumas in life, like and then yeah, like one of the biggest traumas was just his brother. I think that's what like shocked something in him to see certain things and then create things beyond it. Um, he said he always lived in like euphoria, but that's from his creations, and it's very interesting.
What do you think, David? ¿Qué opinas, Javi?
Well, then we raised a little of the good. He had many good things, and part of his education also came from his father, who was a priest of the Orthodox Church, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's right.
He is also love of neighbor, and that is why the inventions. Many times he didn't collect patents and let them go free because it was his way of contributing to humanity. And he always sought the desire for electricity to be free for everyone. That is, he was raised by his parents in a correct way, where he never wanted to take advantage of anyone. He inculcated it from his mother. They also say the part that she made up her stuff too. He also made insurance tools to make his life easier. So that also created in him the desire to create things to improve people's lives. One, two, curiosity is always what helps us have that, invent things. And even though it sounds like small things we do in our home, a small repair, we're inventing a new way. And that must be left like that because it comes from what is established. And you generate a change in quotes, generating an arrangement in your house in a different way. You are already creating and you have to say it this way. So this curiosity and this eagerness was taught from home. It's true, he had phobias, many problems during his childhood, just as we do, because we do not live among clouds and in a perfect home, that there are no ups, downs, and things that also help us grow and train and move forward. And I think that also generated that spirit in him, especially when he got sick with cholera. And his father told him that if he was cured, he would give him an engineering education. So there were also many challenges that he had. So I think home education will always help us not to be geniuses like Tesla, but to be curious, to be able to look for how to improve the lives of other people from any occupation we have, bring a smile, or generate well being for others. Inculcated by his mother and his father, clearly one from the religious current and the other from his mother, in terms of situations of inventions or treating people well, and obviously the tragic situations that occurred. They were also the ones who created his phobias in the future. And you know it as a psychologist that if you don't attend to this, it will complicate us later, and especially if you don't seek help. And I think he got really excited because you can tell that he stayed until like 3 in the morning and always dreaming and seeing new alternatives, new ways. I mean, he was someone who didn't rest. He was always in operation.
That it was the aftermath of the trauma. No, not being able to sleep that long. For example, they said that he only slept 3 to 4 hours a day, and his job became like he is how to channel those emotions. She didn't become obsessive, and it was the only way she could channel those emotions, those traumas, those fears, because she was extremely busy. That means he lived with a lot of fears. He lived with many, many things he couldn't. No, he never learned to control. And it's incredible because he imagined who is not afraid of electricity. And he, however, was a man who was not afraid of that because of his knowledge, because of the knowledge that he had. And I'm going to speak English for heaven now.
Kevin, he went to. I love what David said. David put it beautifully. When he got sick, suddenly his father said he was going to, send him to engineering. So something good came out of that bad, and his college years. He was first really good, and then suddenly, he had a little struggle. What are your thoughts about that?
I think like sometimes I think a lot of if the college is pushing towards the genius and just trying to push towards something.
Sometimes I think college
I
is
also
the gold
sometimes the
falls.
genius doesn't fit into it because he was trying to understand things that the college probably wouldn't accept. Like literally like what's happening today, envisioning that, but the college couldn't see beyond that. Um, and there's kind of like a certain play in there. So in Nikola Tesla's like I remember he always saw his work as a play. His work was always like a, and he was And that's one of the best sides about it. So he'll wake up and he'll work towards it because he was basically playing as he was doing it, and he was changing a lot of things, electricity, the thunder, lightning. Um, Imagine like trying to capsule that into a bottle, right? And that's what we have right now with batteries in a sense, or like in different forms of it. It's really insane, like how he was able to encapsulate it, and think beyond it. So I don't think like his education years were kind of difficult because the colleges just couldn't understand how to encapsulate lightning, and yet next thing you know, he's created a whole laboratory where he's shooting lightning out of it, like in a controlled atmosphere, like it's a
Yeah,
wizard.
I can imagine like the incomprehension of trying to measure intelligence, because even today, and we're talking about like almost 170 years after he was born, and we still can't measure a lot of different types of intelligence. We measure what we know the most is memorization, which is this is how we academically measure somebody's IQ and intelligence. And Tesla was somebody that perhaps had a lot of creativity. I'm going to pass the question to David now.
Academic training, the two, because you see that at the beginning when he goes to university, he does a 4-year program. He does it in 3 because he was taking more classes. It seemed like it was coming easy for him, and suddenly he had like his little slip, like anyone I am, it belongs to me. Opinion, and I want to hear yours. I think it is very difficult for people of that caliber to make a program that is efficient to continue stimulating it. What do you think there?
Well, I don't know if I've seen a drawing in psychology or something. I don't know what it says. You can't ask a fish to climb a tree then because it can't. His abilities are in swimming. On the other hand, he is a very visionary person. And because many times the bad thing about educational systems is that many times they want to box and frame you, that what I am teaching you is what you are going to serve, it is going to serve you. But they don't teach you to think differently, as this phrase repeats, to think outside the box. Think outside this box. So when you think differently, you question many things, and it no longer catches your attention. It's like someone with obsessive compulsive disorder or attention deficit disorder, where they struggle to focus in specific situations, but when something captivates their interest, they become excellent at it. I think part of his brilliance was linked to this. Yes, you have to challenge yourself or the teachings given to you that may not align, and you resist. And you arrive and you have a way to prove it. You are going to reach friction, so you are not going to have something harmonious. And if you have complexes or you have problems that make you internalize many things, obviously, no, you are not going to say, this is not my place. My place is outside where I can change the world. This no longer catches my attention. I already know, and I'm not learning any more from here. Okay, I believe what I need is to enact change in the world differently. I believe that's what occurred here. It's speculation, but based on bringing in and limiting things we've experienced and recognizing current happenings. Maybe that was what he went through during his college days.
I want why it is very interesting because look, that Kevin also said something very interesting in his interpretation of his college years, that he was, for example, being misunderstood, wasn't he? And we came to that conclusion. And remember that time also, we were not at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in those times. Then the world experienced a change. These schemes had just been made, these educational schemes from which, unfortunately, until today, we perceive this doctrine, not teachings. which should already change because we are already in an era that is practically digital rather than virtual and artificial. And the interesting thing about this is that, as you say it, and I want your opinion, this is because, for example, people like Kevin, like you, David, even I include myself in this, we are not Tesla, logically, but we do have knowledge, wisdom, and experience in what we do. And the importance of being free to be able to do these things? No, freedom is important. Nikola Tesla, I think he understood very well the importance of being free to be able to fulfill not only his dreams, but also challenge himself in that field so that he can develop better. And I'm going to say this in English. So to Tui Jang Tren Han Tren Gie Pong Bon Tan Vanorat Kantiet. Wie Ubi en Song Todo? You live so jackedly. Es gibt nicht, dass sie nicht, dass sie sind. VAI. Kong. Kong. Not because you're better, is because you can see. It tests like a challenge to elevate your financial status.
It's very important for that. Like you have to you have to be expansive. You can't be limited inside a box. Like when the box is there, if you try to go through it, like almost a lot of people stay in the box, right? Because the box is what they know of. And when you step out of the box, it's like stepping into the wild, the unknown, stepping into the forest by yourself. And that's one of the hard parts. So when you do that, when you step into that, when you go beyond the box, a lot of people will just pull you back because they just want to understand it. So Nikola Tesla was going outside of the boundaries of what was known. Uh, he created inventions that he discovered. So it's pretty cool what he says too, because he says that he creates it, but then he also discovers them, and that's one of the main things that he says. He always says discovers, and it's like he's grabbing it from somewhere, right? And that's what it's pretty cool. So his thinking was beyond what even people were understanding, because it's like how aren't you creating if it's his hands on it? But it's like how did he discover it? And that's one of the really big pieces. It was there already. So the Nikola
It was
Tesla,
up for the grabs.
yeah, it was up for the grabs, definitely. It was explorer of conscience.
Affection. David, I liked what Kevin said. That is, he 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 was so humble that he said that I discovered it and then he invented it. But what what do you think about that freedom to be able to discover and invent?
First of all, like I told you, we can all put that one on. We can say we invent something when we do something out of the ordinary. My daughters sometimes say to me, Dad, we invented such a thing. I say, yes, my little girl, you did it because you did it. And but I give her the satisfaction of saying yes because she did it differently. I mean, he wasn't someone who went with the flow, if not that he wanted to do it his way, and it came out well. And not just anyone. When it's repeated to her, you realize, yes, she did make it up. Did you create a new way to do this? Yes, absolutely, but not here. He broke paradigms even without considering that the person he was going to question was the foremost expert in electricity at the time. So he didn't care about that because he was sure of what he was doing. It was fine and never went with the flow. He always went first, defending what he knew, and this with the certainty that he had discovered and invented then, because it is something that did not exist at that time, that he had different knowledge where everyone said, DC, 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 everyone and everything was DC. So if someone comes, the first thing you are going to call him is an idiot, a fool. You don't know what you are saying. You are going to have everyone against you. But he didn't have that security within his phobias and everything. I had that security and told him, no, it's not like that, and to show up as no. And
David, the curious thing you mention is fine, which in this case is what you say. There, if we notice, not that fears are circumstantial. Because, for example, he was a brave man in that aspect. Never, for example, and we're going to talk a little bit later because we're going there with his great friend. Edison know then, for example, he had character, he had personality, that is, despite being perhaps misunderstood in many things, right? Because the geniuses of a person with that intellectual capacity are also strange. They are not people who normally behave in a social way, as we would say common. They have no other development. Why? Because they think differently and live obsessed with their work. And that's what I wanted to ask, because then the university leaves and he goes to Paris. To install the lights to the installations of his great friend. No, lie. He is not a friend. A rival? Edison, no, but how do you think that, for example, because, for example, Edison had the theory that his theory was correct and that there was no need to think about it. No, there was no reason to question electricity like him, Tesla. Installing these things, what do you think he discovered? And I don't know who I want to take this question. First, got head.
heavy.
Kevin, you got this one? All right, so go ahead, bro. Like, let me know what you think because his years in Paris are pretty interesting, and that's how I'm pretty sure in his head he was formulating like, oh, there's a better way. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, yeah. So of course, when he's like building the generator, he's hands on, right? So you have the idea maker, which was like building at first, and then you have the blueprints, and then you're working at it, and then when you're working at it, like you start discovering certain things, start discovering the intricate pieces of it, and that's when saw the efficiencies behind it. Uh, and then he started to think beyond what was there. So he was like, he was just, he kept pushing on it. Um, and then, yeah, those years there with Edison were impactful because Edison didn't believe there was another way to make the generator faster until he started doing it. And then I, yeah, I think I had to pass on the buck a little bit.
No, that's fine. That's fine because, like you're saying, like like it was probably difficult for Edison too. Let's put ourselves in those shoes too, because think about it. This guy probably invested probably all his fortune on this to be wrong. And as he's implementing this, that means he had to restructure the way he did things. So I can also understand why Edison was so stubborn about it, but and it's beautiful because we're getting to the point where they start working directly with one another. In Paris, you know, Tesla is just there putting, connecting the systems, and he's just a worker, but then he becomes very known because of his brilliance.
David, I wanted to ask you that. I mean, how do you see those years in Paris where he maybe saw those opportunities that Edison couldn't see?
I think the same fact as I told you, wanting to do something different. As I told you about my daughters, which they always tell me, I invented that. And I tell you, yes, it's true. Excuse me that I'm always going to talk about my daughters for.
No, it's not okay.
This then he realized that he hears, but this can be better, more efficient, and not him. It's just that in Paris, He didn't know anything. He was already studying, he was already making projects, he was already making models, he was already making devices, he was already experimenting, and that. The knowledge he had or the practice he had had up to that point made him realize that what he had done in the university was much more efficient, but that he needed to work to have sources of money to prove it. Then it was a moment of humility, of learning, and above all, of understanding. How were things being done to know what was wrong and how to improve it? So when you go to a place or where you go or where the place you are and you see that things are going wrong, you learn from that because those mistakes help you to be able. In this case, invent or you can correct or, hey, this is being done wrong. And I know how to improve it, and it also serves you for trial, error, because we also learn from that. And that for me was the university of life, as they say, learning outside, because it is also different. University gives you concepts, but outside you have to learn from the reality of what you find, because outside you do not find yourself. As in the laboratory, under controlled conditions, it is true that the problems, the unfavorable circumstances do not control. Inside your laboratory, there is no inclement weather, lightning, water, nothing. The earth has not changed in the countryside. You learn a lot. That is living outside, working yourself. Do you have these conditions that allow you to make changes? And for me, that was the best thing for him because he wasn't locked up in a place, in a laboratory. He was there doing facilities and seeing how he could improve what they were using, whether it was right or wrong, and doing tests. For me, that was the best thing for him, to be able to experiment better and also prove that the results he wanted could be given with his theory, alternating current.
Alternate.
Kevin, do you think this was really relevant in his career when he started to like experiment more during those years in Paris when he got his hand dirty in the field? Because I know you always talk about the importance of the field. What are your thoughts about that field experience?
Yeah, when you're in the field, you understand the intricate pieces of it, and the field experience is really important because you do see the behind the scenes work, and the behind the scenes work is you have to see it to really dig into it. Like if you don't if you don't see it, like what kind of leader or like is that? So Nikola, it's interesting because Nikola Tesla is also a leader, and he's a huge leader. He has a lot of morals behind his work too. A lot of his work is for humanity. So he's a very inspiring leader to look up to.
I like that. I like that. He definitely was very humanitarian in terms of his philosophy of work. And I wanna piggyback on this on you, Kevin, and then I'll go with David, and I'll be the last one to give an opinion. But well, from Paris he gets noticed. Then he goes to New York with his homeboy Edison. He gets hired. And what are your thoughts about like when he meets Edison and there's like controversy, and also he's European and Edison is American, different cultures. What are your thoughts about those first, because I think he only worked 6 months with him, so what are your thoughts about those 6 months of working under Edison's leadership?
Oh yeah, I don't think so he went through already. People are like Edison didn't like his ideas. He didn't like how he was going with alternating currents versus direct current, I believe, right? So
That's correct.
yeah. So with this alternating current, direct current, Nikola Tesla was thinking about basically like the waves of a current, like how can it travel farther, and how can it travel in a more distance with less energy? Because with the direct current, it was not. I don't believe it was even half. It was like just like a little quarter of what Nikola Tesla was seeing beyond. But again, like Nikola Tesla, Edison put a lot of money down into direct current and the use of direct current. So imagine having somebody come in with another idea that they can patent. That becomes like a standoff between what can impact, like the war of electricity in a sense. And Nikola Tesla kind of started that because he started seeing bigger, because electricity was about energy and how can you get that energy supplied around the world to different people. Edison thought about it like money, right? And he's like, how can I make the most profit from it? If you build more factories for the direct current and you need them throughout the town, how much more money can you make rather if you build factories that are this amount, like this far? Then Nikola Tesla was kind of like saving that money versus Edison that kind of like wanted like factory built here, factory built here, factory built here, supplying different cities or different towns. Well, Tesla could supply different towns in a different way. A lot of people, they wanted things generated. Even Nikola Tesla, like one of his big ideas, like later on in his years, were free energy. But we won't step into free energy yet. We'll step into that soon. But his alternating current versus direct current, oh, like
Yeah, night and day, right? You can see the night and day difference. David, on that topic we are talking about, no, I mean, he arrives from Paris, arrives in New York, and only lasts 6 months of working under the leadership of Edison. What is your thought? What do you think ruined things? And the other question I have for you, which I forgot to ask Kevin, is do you think that understood the level of genius he had next to him?
Starting with the second question, I think they didn't see him as a genius, but rather as a madman.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but
But for
what?
but why? Because he was the supreme master, let's put it this way, of electricity, and what was said had to be done. So when someone comes to contradict you, the first thing that comes to you is crazy. Don't pay attention to it then, and it is human behavior now. Imagine many years ago, and it hasn't changed anymore. So I thought I considered him crazy, and that's why they didn't give him the relevance that Tesla had. Apart from that, it was a good business because only you are the only one who dominated the market, and someone comes to tell you otherwise. First, you consider him crazy and discredit him because he says, no, that's an apparition that we don't know where he comes from, and no, don't believe him because you're the only one who drives. The electricity business has to be done, as I tell you, because I am the genius. That's why I think I mainly don't consider him a genius, but a madman. So I think that lasted very short. It was because of that, because of the multiple frictions, and because you want to, first, when you are hired to do a job, what you want to do is the best of the best in your job and be appreciated for what you do. And if things need to be improved, you raise it because human behavior itself makes you do things well and because you are hired to solve problems, right? So he thought under that humility, let's put it this way. Because we have already seen that he had many behavioral problems towards people. And perhaps the way he said it was never well received the message. but he was a genius, and I knew what he was saying was the right thing to do. For me, he was despised, and that's why he decided to leave. Because you can't be. When you have that kind of behavior, you can't be. A long time in that place because you first feel suffocated, not understood. And if you want to change things, because what the thought had was that energy has to be free and free for everyone, because it's simply not like I eat water. For example, water, if I own the water, I can leave I can let many people die when I own water because I can control it. Electricity can't, and that's why for me, he thought it had to be made free for everyone because it's something that you and I can control, but it has to flow. I don't do anything. If I maintain I am the owner, I can't do anything about electricity. I have to distribute it, and the best way is for it to be free, like water.
That's right. I like it. I like both perspectives because, for example, it's true. I mean, Edison thought he was a giant, and sometimes, I mean, knocking out those giants is difficult, right?
He,
But
and I think
I
about
also
this,
get to
Kev.
think, don't I?
It's like, wouldn't he made more money if he wouldn't have just listened a little bit, or at least experimented? Because Edison was a man that also, to get to that conclusion of this electricity, he probably experimented, and he knows the value of experimentation. Why didn't he take that risk with Tesla? And this is where I do believe that his ego got the best out of him, and his pride as well. Because, like David was saying, and even you were saying, he was the big dog. And the big dog always wants to bark louder. But you can't bark louder than knowledge and the truth. And it eventually, it was only just a matter of time until the truth came out about which practice, theory and practice were better, more useful, more resourceful, more efficient. My question to you is, Edison was foolish, or do you think he was egocentric?
Hmm.
Tonto no creo. Tonto no creo.
David said, I don't think he was foolish.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I think he was egocentric. Definitely. It reminds me of, remember the POS system?
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember the POS system. It
Yeah.
was like the POS system was like God Himself brought it down as manna to the earth, and you needed to eat it because it was the only thing that worked. You figure out that yeah, there's better ways.
Yeah, definitely reminds me of that. I'm like, oh, so I think like really egocentric, because then it's like, let people know, but it's corporate that has to stick down to certain things in policies, like a lot in corporate. Sometimes it's kind of like a status game. So at the science level, it's like, oh, it's Nikola Tesla, or scientist, and Edison. And it was at that wave of like the new frontier of electricity. Who was going to be the forefront? And Nikola Tesla's like, I think if he would have stayed with Edison, would he have to put his name on the patents as well for that? Like Edison probably could have like stole his ideas. And I don't think Nikola Tesla wanted Edison to steal those ideas. It became like a political thing. And Nikola Tesla could have made so much money. And I think he knows he could have made so much money. But like with all the money that he made, he literally put like every dime back into the science, put it back into the technology to even just improve it more. Like he got his essential needs. So all the needs were met, and then after all the needs and for his own energy was met, he was able to put all the other resources right back into the pot of the science, into the field, into his own lab, into his own sandbox to play in. Because I mean, if you're working in a sandbox that has boundaries that you can't go through because of the politics of Edison not wanting Nikola Tesla to go through. We were talking about this one of the podcasts before too, elevating the elevating leadership. Edison didn't want to elevate Nikola Tesla. And that was one of the hard parts. That was Edison's egocentric thing that he didn't go through. Enough. He didn't have enough humility to elevate Tesla.
Mhm.
That would
I
have
like
been both of them.
Yeah, I like your perspective.
David, you said that you definitely think it wasn't stupid. But now, do you think he was self-centered or was he too ambitious since you think he wasn't stupid?
No, it wasn't stupid because let's see, part of the wisdom of all of us. We know that you have to know how to accept different ideas because I could really be wrong and hear everyone, different one, and each of them thoughts. The most important parts are put together to reach a common appreciation. I think he acted most on selfishness and egocentrism. Selfishness, because he wanted to remain the center of attention of the scientific community. She didn't take him as a pupil or an apprentice enough to attract him. Do you know what my apprentice is? I like your ideas. Let's revolutionize and do.
A change?
Or let's invent something else if it wasn't. Act more on your egocentricity and what I said apart. Egocentricity is
Selfishness and selfishness, exactly.
selfishness and that blinded thought. Because Edison, we cannot discredit that he was also brilliant for his time. It also had the same or not similar drawbacks, but it also had the same difficulties because none of them, let's say, were golden cradle.
That he had everything within his reach, he had to fight it, and he had to do it.
But also many times selfishness and egotism lead you to make bad decisions, and not only at a scientific level, but also personally.
Of course, and how selfishness blinded him, didn't it? Because it turns out that when he decides not to accept these new theories, not these new theories that could carry a practice that is the more revolutionary what was already. But Tesla goes and this is interesting why
Tesla starts like working for $2, digging holes, and like there's like a humbleness to him as a scientist. He knows so much, but he understands he needs to also survive. And one of the things I like about Tesla is that the ability to see beyond his own experience, his accreditation, his qualification, and then knowing that, okay, right now I have to put that to the side because right now this is what I need to do to make it to the next day. And we're talking about difficult times too. And he knew how to maneuver these difficult times because perhaps he saw those times sometimes back home when he was sick and all that. My question to you guys is like, what do you think he learned from that experience? Who wants to take it, David or Kevin?
No problem, Joe. But let's see. I think that here we must give very great accreditation to Tesla in the sense that although he knew that he was fine, I think so. I knew he was a genius because you're a genius when you think differently and you're misunderstood and you can fix things and get to it again and not be selfish, neurocentric that because I already have a career, I've been working for a good company or working for the biggest one up to this point, and the owner of the word electricity already, so in this case Edison or the company, larger, and that was like referring to electricity at the time, and he decided to go do a common job because one well, no. His ambition, because he wanted, was to prove, and for that he needed money to prove that he was right, and for that he needed money. And that's what she went to work for, to be able to prove, although she didn't need to, that he was right. And that everyone would see each other not in words, but in physical form. Look at this. I meant this, but for that, I sacrificed my status because I needed the money to prove it.
Of course, and from there you denote your wisdom. Is his wisdom too, not of knowing how to understand the times no, and also perhaps, and this is what I also evaluate, because something you two said was, it seemed that he was perhaps even miserable working for Edison, and at the same time he didn't feel valued. And I mean, I think the lesson is there that you can earn a lot more doing what you like, but if your leader, it doesn't empower you, it doesn't value you prefer to go to a place where you give yourself your courage for anything else. And I think that's the real detail of this, isn't it? And
Kevin, I want to ask you that because you know that he went through that little road of like learning, getting away from Edison was toxic, and we understand toxic environments and what it does. And how free, because I don't think he had freedom too with Edison. He was probably micromanaged. What are your thoughts about him going from there? And do you believe he enjoyed doing those humble work that had nothing to do with electricity more than working for Edison?
There's you had when Nikola Tesla had a goal doing his humble work, $2 a day with shoveling and digging holes, versus working with Edison. Edison micromanaged, kept bringing him down. There's a limit that he can only do. I mean, he probably had to do the same thing every day, make alternating current generators every single day, kind of running the same process. And if he brings in a new process, a new efficiency, brings that up, it gets shut down. Even if he starts creating it, then he gets punished for creating it himself. So that's one of the hard things about it. Nikola Tesla couldn't go beyond just making direct currents. Versus if you have that goal in mind, no matter like how far you work into it, Nikola Tesla as leader knew he could probably get more people invested and interested. All he needed was to just create certain things just to get the ball rolling. So to like it was just finding opportunities. It wasn't. He knew like from his journey that like he wasn't going to be digging holes forever, and that's one of the things that he knew in his journey. That was one of his humility moments, just to get to a certain place. And in the heights of heaven, we kind of talk about up here, like you go from down here to up here, back down here to start raising them back up.
I like that. I like that. Like almost like the Joseph story.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love what you guys are saying. The other thing is, there's a part before he leaves Edison. I don't know if you heard about like Edison said something that if somebody does a certain task, he was going to give them $50,000. And and Tesla goes and does I think within a day resolves the issue, and then he goes back to Edison and says, like, hey, I did it, I resolved it, give me my $50,000. And then Edison, I think it demonstrated a little dishonorability. He says, you don't understand American humor. So what are your thoughts about that? Look at Kevin's face. I don't know.
Crazy. That's crazy. Yeah,
Who wants to go first? You want to go first, Kevin, or David?
yeah.
Kevin, take it, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like he literally, so you have it in writing, like, yo, whoever, or it just even like, whoever gets this invention, $50,000. That's a problem that needs to get solved, and obviously it's a big problem that needs to get solved. I think what really surprised Edison was that Nikola Tesla did it in a day, and that was the ego part. Like maybe like it was a bet. Like basically Edison just put up a bet, and he couldn't hold to his word with it. Like that. That was the biggest.
Wrong man to bet against, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Nikola Tesla was like, "Yo, where's that bread?" Like, like he threw it in.
I like that. I like that.
What do you think, David? Tell me, what do you think of that moment between Edison and Tesla?
First of all, I think based on Edison's own selfishness and self-centeredness, how to put it, go boy, I'll give you the chance, but it gives you for him an impossible task. I'm going to give him a task, this boy, an impossible task. And I'm going to tell him that I'm going to give him money because he won't do it. He's not going to make it. So from there, you don't believe in the person and send them to do an impossible task. At that moment, part of him, I'm going to send you to do an impossible task. And that's the challenge. It was the one who needed Teslas to do what he wanted, to prove what he said, and when he did it, because it was a sent job. When he went to receive, it wasn't, if it wasn't, how do you say, when they cover your mouth because you thought he wasn't going to do it and he did it, then typical of your selfishness and heterocentrism, it doesn't allow you to recognize that he did it well and that he succeeded, and that's why you don't give him the money. So for Tesla, it was also part of a humiliation, but it was itself a learning, because he said, okay, already this was like that. Okay, so far I'm here. No, he doesn't recognize me. So I'm leaving and I'm going to create my own world. Let's put it that way.
So it was. It must not have been not only humiliating, but I can only imagine this as well. The disappointment that could have been, the dissection that could have been felt from a person that you believe honorable, who perhaps everyone saw. Edison, as you say, as that person, elite, untouchable, genius. And suddenly, when you get to know him, you realize that he's like a human being who fails like any other. And the worst thing is that he doesn't keep his word. That's why he wanted to. You wanted to go a little further with Tesla, didn't you? And I wanted to ask you why he, from there, if I'm not mistaken, crazy, someone hired him. I think it's Westinghouse.
Westinghouse, right?
Yes, Westinghouse realizes his talent. And this is what I wanted to ask you before entering Westinghouse. I don't know who wants to go first. No, I don't know if Kevin or David. But the question is this: when? Though they're both clowns. The question is this, guys, the importance of investment. Because I imagine Tesla figured that out, didn't he? Who wants to take that question first?
But let's see. For what he wanted to check, he needed, and he knew you needed money. And he also left, not just anyone, because the company he left also wanted to develop and had the capital, because he didn't go to meet the baker or the one from the corner store, let's say.
Him?
Bugger, he went to a company also that he could finance it first, that he was going to give it the value it had, and that he was focused almost on the same medium that Edison's company wanted or was developing, you know? So you go with the competition, let's put it this way, or whoever can compete with you, because he had to go to a civilian company. Where he could prove the theories he had were the correct ones, and that's where the fight came from, because they were two large economic groups. Where Edison was and where Tesla one was more powerful than another, and that's why it was difficult to make everyone rethink about the types of current and which was the most effective, because it cost them a lot from the mockery, from contempt, from turning the entire scientific community against you. But still, the investment he needed then followed. He got the best company for me. So he thought very carefully about where he was going to go, where he went to the right place, where he was endorsed, where he was financed. And where they gave him the recognition that he was able to obtain through his authorship. I mean, he believed in him and gave him his worth. For him to continue with his experiment and be able to come to the conclusion that everyone changed. He generated radical change because you know that the entire scientific community is against you because Edison put it against you.
Of course, yeah, come on, let's touch on that topic, because from there we continue with that very, very good point.
Kevin, what are your thoughts about the importance of investment?
Yeah, it's very important. Like Westinghouse invested into Nikola Tesla. They had a great relationship, I believe, and the relationship went on for a long time. Like Westinghouse saw his Nikola Tesla's talent and recognized his skill and his genius, and it gave Westinghouse a basically another edge against Edison, because the Edison company was a high company. They were the kings, and then any company that tried to go with them, like you know, like when you're on the throne for so long, like other companies come through, because the throne sometimes isn't like throws down the genius, and that's how they don't go up. Like Apple, you start seeing that now, kind of like they're kind of at a cap. So it was like what geniuses went into the Apple that have been thrown down and now are making the new companies that might go with it. You never know. There might be an AI phone coming out soon. So if there's any genius watching, you might make it. But with that, like Westinghouse invested into um, Nikola Tesla, like an angel investor going with AC current, but underneath underneath different negotiations. Well, Nikola Tesla just needed to get his theories out there, put them into principles, and make them tangible. And that's exactly what he did with the alternating currents. Like that's all we use now and today, alternating currents. And he could have it even further, but Westinghouse, after a certain while, he even reached his cap. Remember, like the kings on the throne kind of like throw out their genius, and they might even throw out their own genius. Think about Apple and Steve Jobs in the beginning too. Steve Jobs was thrown out of Apple himself. Like they got rid of their own genius that created Apple. Like Westinghouse got rid of Nikola Tesla. But next thing you know, he wanted to create free energy as well as the next cap. But the angel investors are leaving and literally burned down the Wardenclyffe towers. They got rid of it, got rid of it all. So we never got to see it. But there's certain inventions out there. There's people that wanted to control the energy.
Yeah, I don't think any investor wants to hear free. They get scared. They get afraid real quick, and they're like, "Oh, this is not good business for us." But it's very interesting to hear both of your point of view. It feels like you guys like are in sync. even though you speak different languages, but it's almost very similar, like how you guys are viewing this, even myself with you guys. And it's important to understand also, like David was saying, there was a point where Edison was trying to discredit Tesla's work, saying that it was dangerous, that it was going to kill people. I think they even killed like an elephant, something like that, an animal. And why do you think, and this happens a lot, this happens, I'm not surprised, first and foremost, because it happens today, like politicians, the way they, want to win a campaign is by discrediting other people and not focusing on their strengths, and opportunities. Why do you think Edison was so focused on discrediting Tesla's work?
Edison was torturous with it. Like, for example, like with the killing animals part, like it direct current is what killed like people like fast, and the alternating current is what tortured them. It is what kept them alive while staying electrocuted. So imagine like you're staying in that electric shock. You're just like, but for a long time. Yeah, like match for that. Like, but then with direct current, it's just like so. Edison was kind of like disqualifying his own credibility, even from trying to go like discredit Nikola Tesla. Like he was like some of Edison's experiments, it some of them didn't even like go through. Like he was creating propaganda. Edison was creating a lot of propaganda against Nikola Tesla. But remember, like this is a new front in the industrial age. This is the stamp on energy. Like this is what could change the world. That this is what was changing the world and has changed the world. Like whose name goes on it. And if you're a really egocentric person, whose name goes on there, right? So a lot of like think about it even now, like a lot of inventions and a lot of what school teaches is Edison, 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 Edison. The victor usually writes the story. You don't really hear the loser of the story until you start hearing more about it. Like history starts revealing itself from it. Nikola Tesla has created this, like I believe he's created this 21st century. Like he really has. He gave us the ability to also think about like quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and that beyond. Because like even the radio got us to think about like what's going on between the space, between what's going like in between stuff. Because in one of his interviews, like they just I think they posted like one of the interviews, and then they talked. Nikola Tesla talked about how one discovery leads another branch of human evolution. So each discovery leads a human evolution. So, for example, like getting your doctorates, like when you get the doctorate and discover something that's even new, you lead another branch of evolution for the conscience, for the mind, for humanity.
And I love what you said, Kevin. It's like history reveals itself. You don't even have to like fight it. And Edison proved that he was wrong, and what he did ethically also was wrong. And I'm gonna ask David, I mean,
What do you think of that? Why do you think he wanted to make that controversy to discredit Tesla? Because I imagine he had to know Tesla was right. There comes a point where you have to know that the other one is right.
No, of course, we're all smart and must know when they're outdoing us. In an argument, in this case, in the presentation of theories, the only way is to discredit your opponent. It is the resource you have to discredit him because it is the only way they will no longer pay attention to him. When you have no arguments to defend your position, then what you have left is to discredit. Left. So I believe that happened, and he acted accordingly, resulting in the development of alternating current which led to the Industrial Revolution. Everything we have now stems from this, because if we had all stayed with direct current, we wouldn't be where we are. I believe that if we would go with candle, and us, if not, we would not have had what we have now: telephone, television, data transmission over the internet through frequencies. So I think the point of winning him, that was not only the most important thing for his life, but it made this genius rethink many things and keep moving forward. Because having won the battle he did is the best thing he could have done, and not only having won it, not with words, but with facts, and demonstrating why alternating current was more efficient then. For that, for me, the breakdown was for that, because it is the last resource you have to win a description that you know you have lost.
It's akin to drowning, David.
Yeah, that's it. And especially because you had the entire scientific community believing you. So everything you were going to say about the other person or opponent, they were going to believe you, because they were never going to question what you said. But he did still appear as Nikola Tesla, who perhaps I consider a person who did not have common behavior, as we already talked about, common in quotes. Of course, a crazy person. So it's easy to get all those people to listen and follow that, because he was the reference person in terms of electricity at that time, and nobody ever had to contradict that or listen to Tesla say, hey, come and tell us, what must you share or prove? There was never regard for him, only accreditation by his institution and the scientific community.
Of course, and it seems to me well said what you just said in terms of that. For example, it would have been more noble than he would have been. Just accepted that he was wrong or not. But as you said, selfishness, egocentrism took the best of him, and in the end, he himself was discredited. No, he himself did the harm, he himself set his foot. And I'm going to go a little further in history, because Tesla is interesting not only. He had these labor conflicts that to this day we are no strangers to them. They occur, perhaps not to the extent that in that time where there were no labor laws that protected you, but that exists today. And we have to be aware that even a genius like Tesla happens to him and finds it difficult. But you have to be resilient, right? What if you know the truth? Always the truth. It will come out to you. You're going to make it. Now, you wanted to ask Kevin. I'm going to start with Kevin.
Kevin. So Westinghouse and Tesla. And Tesla was in love with Niagara Falls because he saw so much energy there. He saw, I could just imagine Tesla like looking at the Niagara Falls and he's this is where you get your energy. You know, he's seeing the force. What he's envisioning. It's like, how can I create the best energy from here? And Westinghouse and him were ambitious at the beginning, right? They were supposed to just give Buffalo City electricity from there. So they create these huge turbines. That right there revolutionized everything, like David was saying. That mapping of creating those turbines. And the funny thing is Tesla was the one that patented, like he created it. How do you think he felt when he was given this project to make Niagara Falls what it is today for the United States in terms of electricity?
Yeah, when we talk about empowering leadership, that's Westinghouse empowering Nikola Tesla, the talent, seeing that he saw the Niagara Falls as a place of a lot of energy that provided for a whole city, like a whole city. Direct current couldn't like even do the like go into a town, right? So like imagine the whole city being provided for from Niagara Falls. That just opened the gates. Like that was like a big stamp, a big investment from both sides that literally changed the direction of where energy was going and how to capture the energy flow of certain things. I can imagine like Nikola Tesla like looking over the edge and feeling the burst of water come up as well, and just sticking his hand out and being like, yeah, that's a lot, that's a lot of energy there. So I think Westinghouse investing into the turbines with Nikola Tesla and Tesla creating ideas with the turbines and pushing through with how to literally like visualization. Like he visualized as he got there too. Like pretty sure as he was there, he visualized some kind of mechanic and concept. Like he saw one of the like the layers, the filters of light over the Niagara Falls of what could have been there. The next thing he needed to do was just create the detail of that layer that he possibly saw. Like he possibly already saw the invention there itself as he was looking at it. Like he looked at it and then he saw it being built in his own head and said, "We're gonna capture it. We're gonna do something here." So I think Nikola Tesla was like the power. It's also like the power of visualization. Uh, it's very powerful. He literally talks about it all the time. He built everything in here first, and then put it out into the world.
Yeah. David, what do you think of that moment? Epilogue from him to forgiveness. By having that opportunity that Westinghouse presents to him to generate all that energy, and that is today energy is generated from New York City, where we are, since that is what Tesla invented. And very few know about that, don't they?
I think so.
The best thing, and I think there is a phrase, he is seeing that an invention of yours is changing people's lives, and he realized that it started from something small, and you feel proud how it starts with something small, something that you did in your lab, in your space, and you take it to a gigantic construction and it's not the same. And that's why here in experimentation, it's not the same to do things in the laboratory, as I told you, with the conditions, with the best conditions. It's different being on the field. You have everything against you where you can't control anything. Nature is uncontrollable. So let's get your lab invention into practice and make it work. I think it was the best feeling he could have had. First, you get the relevance of the moment. You get the affirmation that you were right, that the sacrifices you made served to get you there. May you receive the recognition you deserve and that you are changing many lives. Although it was not well appreciated at that time, I believe that we know how to appreciate the relevance of that point much more than at that time.
Why?
Seems like it.
Because that was the starting point of demonstrating his value of, or reaffirming that what was right and that was no longer considered crazy, was not discredited, but hey, he is right and he did it.
Did he give you the validation that he so much? I think he wasn't looking for validation. I think the validation he knew he had, and it was only a matter of time. Because at the end of the day, imagine that Edison had problems in this electricity construction, that he couldn't cover many places without having a system or 1.1 power source in every diameter distance. And Tesla came and gave him like 3 slaps, papa, like someone who says, I am your dad and
I'm your father.
I'm your father, like Luke Skywalker. I'm your father, he told him. And I mean, he brought him to a distance that was unimaginable. And I mean, I think maybe not even with that, Edison, he was able to recognize the genius that Tesla was because of that same selfishness. And I want to ask both of them something, and I'm going to ask Kevin first, and I would love to hear your perspective too. And then I'm going to give my comment.
This is a question that I would love to ask you guys. And Tesla, the first question is, will you consider Tesla to be at the same level of genius of Einstein? And why was one more famous than the other?
Ooh.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I'll
No,
put you
no,
on the hot seat, man.
that's great. That's great. Uh, so on the interview that I released from Tesla's stuff, I started to see him discredited and stuff, but like it was talking about like Einstein thought of a like a certain like Einstein, I believe, walked so Tesla could run. Like that's what I believe Einstein did. Like I think Tesla is kind of like at a more like superior like rate than Einstein. Like he discovered more things. Like Einstein led certain foundations and certain principles that we could follow, like certain like natural laws. But I believe that was only the iceberg tip. I think Nikola Tesla went deeper into into the tip of the iceberg, and it's like when you flip the iceberg, there's more at that bottom. So I think Tesla really went deeper into it, like with general relativity, with light, because like when studying lightning, it's a form of light as well. So like taking the concepts from Einstein, it's he had to take those concepts into account, but then you're discovering a little bit more of what electricity was. It's one of those natural elements. It's an element, but they don't teach you it's an element. Like electricity is definitely one of those elements, but they took that out. The ether is an element, but they took that out. Like education is one of those things that took out one of those sciences that we don't learn about, which is the ether. Because it's an element, but I think Einstein can only go like Einstein went over here. Like if we think about the mountains of discovery, like Einstein left the discovery path here. Tesla left another discovery path here, and more people are gonna discover more from Tesla's discovery. The mountain of discovery only goes higher. As conscience grows, the I believe like the human conscience, when you discover something, you're going to discover more of it. You're going to go deeper down the rabbit hole, or you're going to go higher up into the heavens. It's discoveries that are going to lead you upwards. So it's that, I think that's what he did. Einstein left one of the discoveries that left him here. Nikola Tesla laddered off it, and he went higher with that. And somebody will come along the way and also like higher off Nikola Tesla's like ladder up it. They climbed it.
I like that.
What do you think between the genius of Einstein and Tesla? And why do you think one was more, shall we say, better known than the other?
First, Tesla, obviously, as a discredit campaign came, he was always belittled then. It was not worth it within the time in which he lived. The value is obtained later when he dies. of course, the important relevance of the demonstration of his theory of alternating current with the part of putting or helping or providing electricity to. He validated an entire population in a different way, but he was never validated as much as Einstein. And the two different minds, where one has a genius for the creation of devices and theories, also about electricity, about current, about new sources. Of the theories that positioned other inventors to obtain in other inventions such as radio, television, etc., remote control, all these changes. Einstein's thinking was much sharper in another type of situation, not of creating a device, but of generate a new way of thinking about what the universe is like from one of the very revealing theories for its time, and that the scientific community knew how to take advantage of it, and if it knew how to receive it, which were also phenomenal. Don't discredit Einstein in the part of which was more or less. I think they were both impressive in their way of thinking for their time, but Tesla did more tangible things. Instead, Einstein was theories that were tested and that are the basis of the science of the modern universe, let's put it that way, or the world of quantum physics. And everything we know so far is thanks to Einstein's theory. On the other hand, Tesla has gone for another current. It is more about designing equipment and making them work, and also theory. It's interesting, but one was discredited, another was not. But both were spectacular geniuses who came to change everyone's way of thinking. That is, everyone. Think differently.
Sure, and I thought so too, David Carmen. I thought, for example, Tesla was always much more tangible. And the interesting thing is, for example, Einstein studied energy in a way that Tesla did, but it was energy. After all, they saw him from a different point of view. But it's interesting because also, I mean, I think Tesla was so ahead of his time because we have to be. I think that he is a little bit ahead of his time than Einstein because, for example, and I think that also the circumstances, that is, Einstein didn't have to sail against the current as much as Tesla did. And that also has its validity. I mean, Tesla, as you say, was discredited. And from there, in the scientific world, we know discredit is like cutting you off at the root, and it is very difficult for you to get out of there. Update. And what did interest me was very interesting about Tesla. It was the simple fact that it was never comfortable for him. I mean, remember that he caught fire. It was a lab, and all his equipment was lost. I mean, not him. He didn't experience the propaganda of a war, because wars too. They market your genius not when they need you. No, Tesla did not go through those moments of the First, Second World War. He did not live in exile like Einstein had, which Einstein did not, who arrived in a poor place. Einstein got to the best universities here in the United States, has sponsored, and that is with the investment. Then we have to look at those circumstances too, don't we? Tesla, I think, had to work harder, while Einstein did live a much more comfortable life. They give hips. I don't take credit for Einstein because Einstein is also very interesting. I love his theories, but yes, I give Tesla a little bit of that grain of salt towards him. in the term that he was more resilient with the propaganda he had, which was negative. And think about something that maybe no one was thinking about at the time. Just like Einstein thought about black holes, excuse me, Tesla thought about wireless things. That is, I think that is, see that house of genius to see me, and I'm going to say it in English.
Seeing this kind of genius that, oh yeah, I make electricity with cable, but cable, can I make it without it? Can I make it wirelessly? What kind of energy can I harvest from nature itself? Because he understood the sun itself generated energy. And that's like a limitless source of energy for the whole planet. This is where I think he gets the concept of free energy. It's like, why should you charge for energy? Yeah, you charge it because you're the one making the machines to generate and transform it. It's that's just business. But he understood, and I think the concept of free energy came from that. Like, energy is free; it's everywhere. When you move, you generate energy. So to him, is like seeing that, he's like, "Oh my God!" This is my question to you guys.
And I'm going to ask David first. No. Ask David first. For example, Tesla saw these things that I don't think anyone in the 1890s, 1880s, and around 1900 could imagine from a remote control device, because he did it, which, as David had been saying, he did too. He 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 patented the ELEL, the Lat coil test, no, which is used to transmit radio and television signals. Which one is yours? I mean, how do you see that in those times? How can you imagine that? Okay.
First, if they say that his curiosity and what led him to generate that curiosity about electricity is because of the generation of static, and from there he saw that there was something like a current, something he felt. And I think they say that when he caressed his cat, then it is the first thing you have to do to be able to develop the geniuses that you see. Ask yourself the question, what is this? How can I do with this? Or what can I do with this? Asking yourself the right questions generates you to generate a problem by already having the question. And here comes answering that question. And how do you do that? Validating experiments, doing validations. I think he was very advanced in generating those questions, because thanks to those questions, he started looking for the answers, and those answers were fantastic inventions for his time. Or I keep saying the phrase, he thought outside the box. That is, the guy went further and asked questions that for many were considered stupid for that time. And why do you think that more or less like that? The betrayal of much you are silly. How can that be done then? Generating that question is also generating answers, but with devices. And here comes the question that he knows, like electricity, or that all this is in the environment and that it flows. But they flow at different, let's say, lengths or in different waves. And each of them goes as separate, let's say, as well as layers. And you have to, what you emit is the transmitter, in this case, the remote control, and the receiver, which is the device in which it is, travel at the same wavelength, so that I send a message and the receiver does, when receiving that signal, make the movement that I am making. That is a remote control, but it was because he studied. He understood how all this was handled, and that understanding of it made him generate these.
Sure.
But thanks to his understanding that there was not only one electricity, one way of transmitting, but many, that is, he had to investigate that and a device that emitted a different frequency. Then he eventually realized that he could master one of these frequencies and transmit something through it. And this is why numerous experiments were conducted. He didn't sleep with you, and he was obsessive about his work. He needed and wanted to know more, striving to master something and become the best. This obsession led to those outcomes. This served as the foundation for countless discoveries and pushed everyone to think beyond conventional boundaries. What if we don't hear or see things within the box? What can we achieve with different lengths? This was the tip of the iceberg, as Kevin mentioned, leading to many innovations like television, radio, and the internet. Because of this, we are here today. Indeed, having electricity illuminate our world is undeniable.
That's true, Kevin. What do you think, brother? It's a pretty interesting question, though.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to ask like a chemistry question too after this example. In a way, so there's so the water is the electricity, and the wire is what's being contained. Is what's containing the electricity. Is what's giving the electricity a pathway, outlet. Kind of like the remote control device. We always need something that contains something like that's a like humans learn that type of magic beforehand. Like you have to contain. So you have to contain an energy into something to transmit it to even transmute it to transform it, etc., etc. So like imagine taking the water bottle out of the water and getting that to just travel through a tube or just travel through a line. And then I guess one of my let's just play with ideas, right? For example, let's just play for ideas because you're a chemist. Um, so one of the ideas is imagine if you didn't need to get the water from the source of the waterfall and you could just have a straw that gets you to just have a sip of the water around because then there's water in the air, right? There's precipitation, water traveling, clouds are floating. Like there's a source of water that's in the air around us. You have like sometimes like you get when it's dry air around because when it's humid air there's a source of water around. Like imagine taking a sip of water from a straw, rather than from a source of the water bottle. Like that's the thoughts that they were that Nikola Tesla was having containing energy back then, and people couldn't understand that back then. But it could be possible. Like there could be a scientist that creates a way that maybe creates condensation in the straw that sucks in all the air, which essentially is like the water that goes through. But it's a chemical problem, right? That's the Nikola Tesla was focused on electrical problems. What are some different energy problems as well? But those are like questions that Nikola Tesla was trying to answer through electricity, and no one was understanding that in the science world in the electrical science world. It was like if someone brings that to the chemist world, like I wonder like how would chemists feel because that's like now like another chemical thing.
¿Cuál es la pregunta completa?
Oh yeah. Okay. So full question. Oh, so if you could remove the the bottle itself and getting the source of the bottle from the springs into a device of a straw that just gets it from the air. Like, because the air contains water. I believe the air contains water around
Okay.
us dry air, humid air, clouds above us, things like that. Like, what if there was a scientist out there or a chemist out there that was trying to solve that problem of like water? Like, imagine if you go on a hike and you don't have a water bottle, there's no spring around, there's no source of water around. Like, and then you forgot to get your source. You don't have no well around. Like, that could be like a problem, an issue solved. Now, like that was like chemical problem. That was the electrical problems Nikola Tesla was solving, but
Mhm.
we're understanding it. It-
Okay. See,
Now take a look at me. What happens is that I firmly believe that Tesla, if we are going to keep talking about Tesla, asked a multitude of complicated questions and solved many of them. If you ask me, the fact that if we can condense water just as Tesla took electricity and transmitted it through cables and made it spread from one place to another, and it was able to reach us and benefit us. Water is also the essential component of everything, and we should, as you say, it's true. There is power, there is this, there is already a team, it seems to me, in Israel that they developed that took the humidity of the environment and converted it into water. There's already that machine, I think. It seems to me that I saw that they caught the air of the humidity itself. They caught, and they could take it and they could serve it in a glass. I mean, it wasn't an endless source of water because it picked up water in the humidity. There is already that. I think I have seen that someone did start to check that, and I think it is. I have to check it carefully. And if I find it, I will send it to Wender because there is already that equipment where it takes the humidity of the environment and transforms it into water so that you can drink it. It makes you drink too. So that you can see it, that is, there is already, but not as a straw, but as a piece of equipment that captures the humidity of the environment and that generates you. Is it water? It's like what they do. And this is also thanks to Tesla. It's that, and there we are going to put it. It's like the liquefaction of the gases in the environment, and that the potato is stolen from them is borderline now. So, what are they doing? They take from the atmosphere the and they do the ecofaction process, and they obtain different types of gases, which is the one they sell you and with which they made a lot of money because of COVID then. But there is already, it seems to me that that equipment that you say about how to take that straw or something for the humidity of the environment, be able to drink it, yeah, having drinking water seems to me to already exist. I think I've seen it.
Yes, because they sell radio. I'm exhausted from carrying all those bottles of helmet water, and I'm almost at the point of giving up, brother.
I'm about to throw the towel, bro. Every time I go to Costco, freaking 48 packs of water bottles, like hurt your back. And this, I love the answer. Going with Tesla too, one of the things that I wanted to also talk a little bit about Tesla was the fact that he was among the elites, and he seemed to like that too. He seemed to like the fact that he was at some point he was gathered with all the big shots in New York City, and he was living at the Waldorf Astoria, which is one of the most known iconic hotels in New York, and he liked to be very distinguished and dress well. That he was known for that, but also he was spent so fast his money. Do you? And this is a question for you guys. Actually, I have two questions. Do you believe that he really didn't care much about money? although he made a lot, apparently he did make. And also, do you believe he merits a Nobel Prize? Who wants to take that one first?
Ooh, yeah. So Nikola Tesla, like, I think I don't think he really cared too much about the money. Like, he really cared about creation more. He knew like he could create, generate more, etc. Like, he had a spiritual connection too. Like, I think he knew like God was also with him. Like, I think he was definitely like one of those like God sent warriors in a sense. Just like he just wasn't just written down yet. So I think he's definitely just one of those connected connected beings. So, but I don't think he spent a lot on gambling too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yes, he was. Yeah, he spent a lot of money in gambling. He was a big gambler.
Oh yeah. He was a big gambler. He was like, throwing the cards, throwing the face. Yeah, definitely. He was racking it up during gambling. There's conspiracies too about him in the Wardenclyffe Tower. The Wardenclyffe Hotel. Sorry, but not Wardenclyffe Hotel. I'm so sorry. The Astoria Hotel. There's a rumors that they were trying to make that into a Wardenclyffe 2.0, just under secrecy, like a black like hot black like suit operation. Like when you think about even the layout of the hotel itself, like it has all those standard and all those stuff as the Wardenclyffe did. It was just more advanced and people were living in it. It was a perfect operation to happen for for something. And imagine like that being placed in New York City. Like there was the same thing in what he did with the Niagara Falls being placed in New York City. You're gonna power the whole state from New York. Like that's
Yeah.
a whole, but
Do you,
it's
do you,
conspiracy.
do you think he merits a Nobel Prize?
Oh yes, definitely. He should. He definitely merits a Nobel Prize. Like he left us discoveries that we're avalanching in a sense. That's the discoveries, a snowball effect that we're just growing bigger and bigger. Like I don't think a lot of people even thought about AI being implemented so soon and how fast it's being utilized. Like how long have we had AI in the free market? Like how long was ChatGPT really known to the public eye? Like it was being utilized. Like yeah, it was in the market for a while, but like through the popular eye wasn't really known yet. And now if you go around and ask everybody about ChatGPT, it's all known. But how like I'm pretty sure maybe in the 2000 eras, it's like, oh, we're not using AI. Like, and if people thought about AI, they'd have been like Terminator.
Eddie, what do you think about, for example, Tesla? Do you think he deserves a Nobel Prize? And how do you think she likes him? I mean, you think she cared about the money he made?
I don't think so. What happens is that if you think a lot, you worry about other things and not about money. Apart from that, you have inexhaustible sources of money. So for what you have already done, you already have the recognition and validation you needed. So I don't think I was looking at the money, and it's the thought that, well, I sacrificed a lot and now I can have what I want or live as a product of my effort. I think he played a bad game for him, or it was bad for him in the sense that you kind of deviated a little, because the noble thought of electricity for everyone to be in one of the best hotels, the best of the best in the cream and cream of New York, with very powerful people, sometimes null and dazed. And I already like that. You said a little of the thought you had at the beginning, that it does deserve a Nobel Prize. Posthumously, perhaps for the advances in everything he helped humanity, because we have all benefited from not only one of his inventions, but many and all his theories. We have all benefited. I don't think they award and award posthumous Nobel Prizes. They say it's written out there that they will recognize him and that he doesn't want to. He didn't accept it. Even others indicate that it was for Edison and him on par. And neither of them accepted because Edison didn't want to be in the same place as Tesla. So there are these stories that we don't know in depth, stories that, but what deserves much greater recognition than he has now? Yes, because those are the foundations of very important things for humanity. Thanks to this, he revolutionized everything and changed. It gave a complete change to our comfort and to the good living of what we are enjoying now, because thanks to that, we have obtained everything we have around us. I think I do need a much better recognition.
I agree with both of them on what they said. And well, this is part one of Tesla because we really still have to talk about Tesla. For example, what the pyramid meant, the number 3 for him, the years where, for example, his contract with the Morgans, that they financed a project on Long Island for him. That is, we still have a lot to talk about, but before concluding this part one, because the truth is, we still have to talk a lot more about him, and apart from his life once in his maturity, no, this is the last question I have, and I ask it from a point of view, from your expertise, David, what does it mean? Tesla in the chemical community, and what is electricity in chemistry? And as I tell you, I ask you because of the level of ignorance I have, that for chemicals, what does electricity mean? And how important is Nikola Tesla in the chemical community?
Electricity at the atomic level allows atoms to bond and creates electric currents. Wavelengths enable measurements and analyses. One atom can be bonded to another and generates an electric current. That's where we learn. But at the atomic level, electricity is of course useless because wavelengths allow us to make measurements and quantifications of many analyses that are done if we did not have that. Knowledge of the Dion length in which you can put different devices to generate those measurements. Wouldn't they serve you now? So we need, and thanks to him, we were able to make quantitative and qualitative determinations, let's say not at the formula level or generating reagents, but yes, in the important part, because we are always going to be measuring that percentage, concentration, measuring efficiencies, calibrating equipment. So all Tesla's experiments, or each one of them, help us a lot, which in the scientific community, I believe, is very recognized for us, for all the contribution. And as I tell you, it is thinking differently. So I believe that each of us, especially in us, who have to create, for example, a formula for some product or take control, is to think much further and services, and above all, try to be the first to generate change. And I would believe this. Tesla issue states in the sense that we cannot cover it in 2 hours. And it is very important for everyone because I believe that our lives have changed in every one of the aspects that we have played, not only in chemistry. In chemistry, I'll tell you there, it is because of the measurement part, but it is in everything. Because no, I believe that humanity would not have developed as until now. If there hadn't been all those theories and those devices that he created, or that his thoughts were taken or patented by him to generate important devices for the entire community, then I think the value was earned by him alone, and we need to give him more credit. Yes, I thought so.
Yeah, and this was Kevin's fault. I'm going to publicly blame it on Kevin.
Kevin's fault for this topic.
I love Tesla. He's so awesome. Dude, Tesla's
So
great.
I'm gonna have two more questions, and then Kevin, you close it with another question of your choice and close the show. Pero
My question is this, David. Do you think Nikola Tesla knew a little chemistry? And because I imagine he must have had some knowledge of chemistry, because we're talking about the relationship between chemistry and electricity. And my other question was about something that Nikola Tesla said, and I want to hear Kevin also his opinion. This question goes for both of them. Also, he said that mathematics wasn't invented, it was discovered. You think that chemistry was also discovered and was not invented?
See, first the elements exist, then there we go. And second, of course, he must have known chemistry, because you must know who are the ones who transmit this electricity best. Even then, you have to know the behavior of the elements to see which one you were going to use, so that this electricity can be transmitted to you efficiently, and how to isolate it so that it does not come out. I believe that, of course, you need knowledge of chemistry to also rely on them for your experiments so that your inventions work. Especially in light bulbs, with everything. What is the best conductor of electricity? You have to know a lot about physics.
Interesting. That is, the man, apart from being an expert in his field, he had a lot of knowledge in the field of physics and chemistry. Very interesting. Thank you for explaining that to us a little bit, because sometimes you think it's Tesla, that he's the electrician who fixes the wires here on the corner, but his constipation goes much further. I mean, well, I imagine that, having that ability to see things. I can't even imagine seeing today's technology, because logically my expertise is in other things, but I see how he could to escape so much, but also, as you say, because he also sought knowledge in these other fields. And I'm going to leave Kevin so he can ask you his last question and so on.
and we can close the show, Kevin. Go ahead, shoot for the sky for it with David.
Yeah, I love how the chemistry and electricity and all that knowledge is brought together for the conductor. Like he had the mechanical knowledge as well. Like Nikola Tesla was also like he was a jack of all trades in a sense. He kind of pulled different knowledges from different fields and put it all into one. Like working and digging in the wells probably gave him that mechanical knowledge. Being with Edison probably gave him the scientific knowledge. Being with I forgot what the other one was.
Westinghouse.
Yes, Westinghouse. Being Westinghouse also gave him that scientific knowledge as well, with the mechanical knowledge of understanding the equipment. I guess like one of my questions is, what if you were to impact the industry? What is one of your craziest thoughts of chemistry that there is? Like if there was something new, like if you were to if there even is a new chemical to be discovered, because I'm pretty sure it like started off with one, then it led over to two, and then it got to three, and now our chemical chart is this big. But is that really the maximum, like the spectrum of chemicals that were discovered, or and is like are chemicals also pure chemicals? Like, is there differences between pure chemicals and mixed chemicals, or when something is mixed, does it make its own chemical? Sorry, It's like 3 questions in one. That's
Sí, por eso.
I know, I asked so many in one time. Okay, so
Is it like another podcast? That's the question. No, look, I think as part of chemistry, I think the best thing we could have had was water. And what we have is the most precious good and the good element. One element that we must take care of as a chemical substance is water. Why? Because it helps us not only hydrate, but also dissolve substances. It helps us stay alive and generate life. So that's why you're looking for water elsewhere. I believe that the best invention does not invent the best. The best thing that could have happened to humanity is the water and gases that we have within our atmosphere. If I could think outside the box, I would believe that. And if my thoughts serve to improve something, I would believe that it is to understand our body a little better, to not only heal it through medications, but what I need so that my body remains as good as possible. Not removing food, and all we had to bring to the routine was diet and exercise, but rather finding something that does not cause deterioration in our body so quickly, or that helps us to stay not young but healthy. Create that, because I believe that health is the most important thing within humanity. Because we see many diseases, organ deterioration much faster. And I believe that getting to understand and getting to one substance or an element that allows me to generate this. And there, I think I would also put some Tesla, because since we are talking about Tesla, it means that if everything vibrates in a tuning of one wavelength, our body is the same. And if we get this wavelength so that our body heals through it, because everything is electricity and we are all surrounded by electricity, then that wave or that frequency, get it so that our organisms, let's say, vibrate in the same way all. And that it regenerates, that it is about the cell regenerating itself through a truly spectacular frequency, grasping Teslas. And that's why you see many things that tell you about different frequencies that help you calm down. So I believe that reaching a length of a frequency can also heal our body. Not only through an element, a substance, but through electricity itself. I would believe that reaching that point would generate great help to humanity, not as chemistry, but as physics. And if it's like chemistry, a substance that allows us to prevent the deterioration of us in 2 hours.
Organism. Very good answer. The question was really very good. There were multiple, but I think they were very powerful. Now, since we are going to cover our program part 2 of Tesla, we are going to put the other one after 2 programs because we have this one left unfinished. I tell you, the truth is unfinished. It is very interesting. There's a lot to talk about Tesla, but like we did last time, we have to choose the next episode. What are we going to talk about? And Kevin put Tesla. Now it's David's turn, I think this one. Let's continue discussing Tesla because the topic remains fascinating.
No, well, let's talk about, we can continue talking about Tesla because the topic is interesting because look, in the end, as I told you, the topic is so interesting because tell me you can heal through frequency waves that already exist, through frequency waves, magnetism and all this that allows you to see your body and all this, and that helped you a lot in the health part. I would also believe, because we have all already seen that it was around. There is electricity and there is frequency. What's more, all these frequencies circulate through our body. They don't hurt us, but there must be one, or some that cure us or that come out of us.
Very interesting. So let's go as we respect our tours, not part two for the next episode of our Ethics Go podcast. I find what you just said very interesting. Also, for example, in the NNIR, in the psychological aspect, how do you control your thoughts? How do you control your emotions? It's a way to also stabilize energy. And you feel it, you don't see it, but you feel the energy. You feel like you can channel your emotions. When you talk, you feel like you can channel your emotions. Also, when, for example, you decide to go to the forest to scream, you feel that you have excess energy when you eat, when you have anxiety. You also feel that you don't know what to do with all that energy. You don't know what to do and you're impatient, restless, and there come many times those invasive thoughts that say no, that normally take us to a past which has not traumatized, or takes us to a future which, as it is outside the box, we think that there is a danger, and it is important, as you say, to perhaps find that frequency. To be able to neutralize, but also how to use as a way to cure ourselves. No, then we're all going to stay in with Nikola Tesla too. You down for that, Kevin?
Yeah, heck yeah. Nikola Tesla,
right, sir.
of course, I love him.
Certainly not. We do not cover the experiments nor the most significant and relevant inventions. We have not reached that point yet. How might it benefit everyone? Therefore, I believe time is of the essence.
It's definitely inconclusive. Definitely inconclusive. We have to do next. So next week we'll finish Tesla. And what's interesting is let's start with let's start with him deciding not to have a wife, to live on his own. We're gonna start the show with that question. Why did he decide to embrace science over companionship? So stay tuned for the Ethics Go podcast, part 2 of Tesla, coming up in 2 more weeks. Thank you.